Start. Okay, good morning, dear students. Okay, this is Dr. Ramesh, Associate Professor of Surgery. Last time we had discussed about diverticular diseases, and so in a continuation for that, we are going to discuss something about intracutaneous fistula, or commonly we call it as fecal fistula, and something we try to gain some knowledge about stomas. What are different kinds of stomas, when we have to do, and how we have to face those complications and everything. We will have short discussion. So first of all, let's speak about enterocutaneous fistula. That means just like any other fistula, that is an abnormal connection which is active between two anatomically different zones. So that is, by definition, it is an abnormal connection between GIT and skin, leading to leakage of intestinal contents through the skin to the exterior. That is called intracutaneous fistula. Intro means bowel and cutaneous means skin. So what are different causes for intracutaneous fistula? And most of the intracutaneous fistulas, they are iatrogenic to start with. Most of them, they follow some bowel surgery because of sometimes adhesions may be there, bands may be there, intestinal subacute obstruction may be there. And when we are doing some enterotomy, or when we are trying to manipulate the bowel, and in fact, it is often said that most of the intracutaneous fistulas, they develop classically after a bowel surgery, which is not involving any resection or anastomosis. So that it also implies that means that just your manipulation, on-table manipulation of the small bowels, it has remained a challenge to the surgeon and problem to the patient in the formation of intracutaneous fistula. And other causes like fistulating Crohn's disease. Someone might be covering about Crohn's disease and they might have told that there is a propensity of formation of fistulae in case of Crohn's disease, and other inflammatory bowel disease like ulcerative colitis and infection and perforated peptic ulcer and radiotherapy of whatever cause, and sometimes a stab injury to the abdomen or a gunshot injury to the abdomen. All these can cause intracutaneous fistulae. And the condition most commonly follows a surgical complication, either a leak from an anastomosis, whenever we are doing different ilioileal anastomosis or gastrojejunostomy or ileocolic anastomosis, or different kinds of anastomosis. There is always there is possibility of leak from an anastomosis. Yes, that can potentially result in a fecal fistula, and the frequency obviously increases with the number of previous laparotomies. The more you open the abdomen, patient stands more chances of getting fecal fistula. And the problem with fecal fistula is the contents from the small bowel or stomach, from whatever is the origin of the internal fistulation, that can be high output or that can be low output. We divide them into low output and high output fistulae. In low output fistula, so the arbitrary border definition is anything more than 500 ml effluent coming out per day, that defines as high output, and anything less than 500 ml comes as low output. And when you are dealing with high output fistulae, problems will be more. Patient will be obviously getting into dehydration, electrolyte imbalances, and outside skin excoriation and irritation, obvious possibility of extension of sepsis. All these complications will be more. The more proximal the fistula is, or the higher the output is. Okay, it can be challenging if fistula output is high, that is more than 500 ml of effluent per day, and majority of the fistulae, they heal spontaneously, provided there is no distal obstruction or disease at the fistula site. This you must strongly remember, because whatever natural movement, natural peristalsis of the small bowel is there, it tries to heal, provided there should not be any distal obstruction or disease at the fistula site. If there is the primary cause is something like radiotherapy and there is scarring in the small bowel or stomach, or there is malignancy, it is unlikely to heal, right? So another problem is epithelial continuity between the gut between the GIT and the skin, if there is continuation of the epithelial tract, and if especially it is associated with an abscess, they lead to failure of spontaneous healing. They are unlikely to heal spontaneously, and we have to intervene somehow. So, after some studies, there is a protocol in the principles of management of intracutaneous fistulae. That's what we call SNAP management. SNAP. S stands for sepsis, and you should try to avoid sepsis and protect the skin. Skin protection is important once the skin excoriates, because it is caustic. No, is all these motion or whatever it comes, bile, all these that erodes the skin. So you must eliminate. You must try to eliminate the sepsis and protect the skin. Second, N stands for nutrition. Sometimes the more proximal the fistula is, the patient may need total parenteral nutrition. That's what we call TPN, total parenteral nutrition. Obviously, enteral feeding has got its own advantages, but once there is distal obstruction or infection or high output fistula, it's unlikely that enteral feeding is allowed. Once we have to go for total parenteral nutrition, correction of electrolyte imbalance, correction of dehydration, correction of sepsis, correction of metabolic acidosis or alkalosis. All these parameters will come into play. And A stands for anatomical assessment. Anatomical assessment is very much important. We often have to discuss with radiologist after going for a CT scan or ultrasound, followed by CT scan, followed by various contrast studies like enema, double contrast studies likewise. And we have to define the anatomy of the bowel, and we have to define length of the bowel involved, and we have to plan for the proper correction of the underlying fistulous tract. And P stands for definitive planned surgery. So surgery should be planned, because the next point I have written is an early return to operation theatre to try and treat the problem definitively in a septic, malnourished. If a patient is undernourished, if a patient is having septicemia, that is doomed to be failure. That is, you are going to land into failure. Okay, so patient must be stabilized by all means before you take up for surgery. So this is SNAP management. So you should potentially eliminate the sepsis, you should protect the skin, you should go for nutrition, you should anatomically assess the patient, and then only you can go for definitive planned surgery. And likewise, other guidelines are infected collections to be identified by CT scan and drained percutaneously whenever possible. Second thing is skin protection is important, as small bowel effluent is caustic. That's what I had already told you. And nutritional support must include fluid and electrolytes, apart from carbohydrates, proteins, fat, minerals, vitamins, etc. And if the fistula is proximal, that is high output, total parenteral nutrition may be required. And anatomy is best defined by a sequence of contrast studies, that is barium follow through or fistulogram and enema likewise. And anastomosis should never be fashioned in the presence of continued intra-abdominal sepsis. If there is sepsis, your anastomosis is going to be a failure. Or when the patient is malnourished, that is hypoalbuminemic. If the albumin levels they are less than 30 grams per deciliter, that's going to be failure. And according to the international standards of gastroenterologist guidelines, albumin levels should be more than 32 grams per deciliter for that matter. Okay, that's about intracutaneous fistula or fecal fistula. And coming to second part, that is stomas. What is a stoma? Stoma, I will give you the initial guidelines and outlines first. A colostomy means creation of the stoma from the colon, and ileostomy means creation of the stoma from the ileum. So this, when we are discussing about the stomas, I think it is a difficult topic to understand at the undergraduate level, but try to understand to certain extent to which you can understand, because this is a typically postgraduate question. And don't get surprised if I use such words like it's technically challenging, technically demanding, likewise, because this is one particular area that belongs to that comes under the arena of general surgery is not only identification and performing the stoma, the site of the stoma, localization of the stoma creation, and post-operative management of the stoma creation, and what ultimately the patient is going to gain, that is monitoring, is most important. All these things must be borne in mind, and I guess 10% of you may become general surgeons in future, and so try to concentrate about this topic. And ileostomy or loop ileostomy or loop colostomy may come as a short question to you as well. So what is a colostomy or ileostomy? Colostomy or ileostomy, there is only one L is there. I double L, that was wrongly typed. Ileostomy is an artificial opening made in the colon or small intestine to divert feces and flatus outside the abdomen to be collected into an external appliance. Okay, that will be collected into external drain, so that the fecal matter and flatus that will come through this stoma opening. That means you are creating an artificial anus, right? Artificial anus creation. Okay. So depending on the circumstances, it may be temporary or it may be permanent. We'll come to that later. Temporary stomas are usually fashioned as loop stomas. So what is a loop? I will come to that later. And an ileostomy is a spouted stoma. That's what we call Brooks ileostomy. And a colostomy is a flush. That means a part of the small bowel is taken out, and that will, we open the ileum, that means small bowel, ileum part, and we create at least 2 to 4 centimeter margin of the bowel, or the small bowel, or the ileum, that must be outside the skin, and we fold it and we suture it so that it acts as spout. Okay. And whereas in colostomy, we lay open after bringing the colon, large bowel outside, we lay open and we fix the colon to the surrounding skin. That means it will get attached to the skin within a short period of time, and after it gets matured, after this the suture line between the colostomy wound and the skin, they get matured, that will look like a flush. That is the only difference. So temporary stomas, whenever we are trying to give rest to the distal part. So suppose there is a gunshot injury, or there is a penetrating injury to the rectum, or there is a distal outlet obstruction at the level of the rectum, or as a part of the Hartmann's procedure we are doing, or as a part of large pelvic surgeries, large pelvic tumors, especially in case of children, we try to defunction these, we try to divert these things, and sometimes we may be creating a iliorectal anastomosis or ilioanal pouch or J pouch surgeries. There are different kinds of pouch operations are there, and that anastomosis need to be rested. And once flatus or feces is going through the bowel at the level of the anastomosis, or the site of the anastomosis, it is unlikely to heal, right? So we have to divert that in order to give rest to that particular part. So we divert. So that is called a defunctioning stoma. Defunctioning stomas are usually temporary, and we perform it as loop stomas. So what is this ileostomy? Ileostomy effluent, obviously it is liquid, whereas colostomy is solid, because fecal matter that gets solidification in the large bowel. And ileostomy is usually sited in the right iliac fossa, whereas colostomy is sited over the left iliac fossa. And the siting is very much important practically, because you have to identify the position of the stoma, creation of the stoma outside, because it should not cause any inconvenience to the patient. Even if the appliance is partially filled with this wastage material, that should not be apparent outside beyond the clothing, and it should not impinge some bony prominence like anterior superior iliac spine or something like that, because it won't function properly. And also it should be in such an area that skin excoriation, because of these caustic secretions they cause excoriation of the skin, and that should not be in a significant way or in a huge way. So in temporary or ileostomy, whenever we are doing in a temporary ileostomy or colostomy, if you are doing, the ideal place would be lateral to the rectus sheath. Whereas in case of permanent colostomy, if we are doing, we usually come through the rectus abdominis. Okay. So in ileostomy patients are likely to develop fluid and electrolyte problems because the output is more. They are likely to develop fluid and electrolyte problems. You have to monitor the input. You have to monitor the output, because now you are fixing, once you do stoma, you snugly fit with appliance or you snugly fit with drains or drainage system, so that you know what is the output. And the second thing is, whenever you are doing ileostomy, for whatever reason we are doing ileostomy, what happens is, initially there may be 3 liters, 4 liters, or up to 5 liters of effluent may be coming, because the colonic function of reabsorption of water and electrolytes, that will be gradually taken up by the ileum. That will be gradually taken up by the ileum, so that after few weeks it will come out as maybe 900 to 1300 ml effluent per day. So the meanwhile he is losing so much of fluids and electrolytes. You have to be careful with this regard. Yeah, this is loop ileostomy. Loop ileostomy is used for a defunctioning of a lower rectal anastomosis. A lower rectal anastomosis. When you do lower rectal anastomosis, okay, in case of some malignancies of carcinoma rectum, I think when we discuss about rectum, we'll be covering about that. And second thing is, something like Crohn's disease is there, and there is massive involvement of the colon, and the whole of the colon might have been removed, and we go for an ilioanal anastomosis. That could be another possibility. And in some conditions like ulcerative colitis, we try to create a J pouch, or what we call ileal pouch. That means the lower part of the small bowel, that is made like a pouch, and that acts as a reservoir, so that normal anus is restored, especially in certain conditions of Crohn's disease. Though you know that in Crohn's disease anus is involved, and anal involvement is there in 15 to 20% of the cases. In the remaining cases where the bowel is involved, sparing the anus, then we go for ilioanal anastomosis. That means we stitch the terminal part of the ileum, forming a basic reservoir type of surgery we do. That is a J pouch or ileal pouch. We try to create an ileal pouch which acts as a reservoir, and we do ilioanal anastomosis, so that the normal anus is preserved. Okay, compared to loop colostomy, loop ileostomy is much better, because it is easy to perform, and odorless effluent, because motion is not completely formed, odorless effluent, and easy to close also, compared with loop colostomy. Not that in every case it is easy to close, and especially the problem arises whenever there are dense adhesions at the time of closure. We have to be very careful, because we close a wound of stoma by giving a circumstomal incision, right? We don't generally go for laparotomy, and you have to be extremely careful when keeping the bowel inside the abdomen again, because it definitely containing anastomosis, right? So it carries all the risks of anastomosis. And sometimes because of these problems, these difficulties in assessment of adhesions, and adhesiolysis may not be that much easy, and practically we have to go for laparotomy again. Okay. Anyway, it's compared to loop colostomy, it is easy to perform, comfortable to the patient, because the effluent is odorless relatively, and easy to close. And nowadays, whenever we are giving an external appliance to free his odor, we squeeze water-free, something like Odonil is there. And second thing is, 1 or 2 piece external appliances are there, and permanent appliances are there, and they contain some charcoal-like material. and where through air will be filtered out, so the water will be minimized to the patient. And depending on the external appliance what we are using, that depends. Okay. Next, coming to the end ileostomy. End ileostomy is a permanent procedure. That is the end ileostomy. So a permanent procedure whenever you are doing the total proctopodectomy, total remove మొత్తం అంతా ఎత్తేసిన తర్వాత ఇంకేముంటుంది, ఇలియం తీసుకొచ్చి బయట పెట్టాలి, రైట్? ఆర్ abdominal perineal resections. Then we prefer doing that comes as colostomy and colostomy. I am speaking about end ileostomy. Okay, end ileostomy is a permanent procedure after proctopodectomy, and it is a temporary procedure after subtotal podectomy. So sometimes we might have done subtotal podectomy, may have to do subtotal podectomy, but anastomosis is not yet done. So we try to divert the faces outside. And second thing is Brooks ileostomy. That's what I have mentioned. Brooks ileostomy is a classic ileostomy. When the concept of Brooks is about 2 to 4 centimeters of the ileum must be protruding outside the skin. And second thing is the mesentery of that particular bowel loop of the particular ileal loop should not be thickened. Otherwise, there is the compromise of marginal arterial blood supply. Okay, that you have to be careful. Second thing is disposable appliances are there. In case disposable appliances for ileostomies, in 1 or 2 pieces it come, and that will be disposed as frequently, like 3 to 4 times per day. The golden rule is it will be disposed. It's full by 1/3. Once our external appliance is filled to 1/3 of its extent, it will be disposed by the patient. And if it is a permanent or adhesive appliance, that you usually go for colostomies, that bags will be disposed maybe 3 or 4, 5 days, once in 4 or 5 days. But in ileostomy, we use disposable appliances, and along with this plastic material, along with the flange, we remove it once in a 2 days or likewise. 2 రోజులకు ఒకసారి తీసుకుంటే సరిపోతుంది. బట్ ఉన్నంత వరకు మాత్రం రోజుకి 2-3 సార్లు ఖాళీ చేసుకుంటూ ఉండాలి. అండ్ కంఫర్టబుల్గానే ఉంటుంది పేషెంట్కి, సో దట్ ప్రతిసారి విత్ ఇన్ ద డ్రెస్ ఇట్ వోంట్ లుక్ వెరీ మచ్ ఆక్వర్డ్ టు ద అవుట్ సైడ్. That's what something about disposable appliance. And next point is ileostomy flux. Ileostomy flux is, that's what I have mentioned. Initially, there will be high output, 4 liters, 3 liters, 5 liters, likewise. But gradually, the ileum gets adapted for minimal output, or whatever required output only that will come. That means stools thickening must be there. Stools thickened in few weeks and are semi-solid in a few months. Once you do endoileostomy, there will be semi-solidarity that will be coming in few months. And skill, yes, you should be skillful. Surgeon should be skillful here. Never hesitate to ask for help from your seniors or colleagues or whatever it is. And don't ignore to advise the patient how to manage properly, because it is ideally described in all textbooks and it's followed in NHS system or US or even in higher centers here, that there is a stomach care nurse is there who will give not only psychiatric help but also professional help and how to manage their colostomy or ileostomy wounds. But unfortunately, we don't have stomach care nurses everywhere. So it's our responsibility to look after that. And problems, anticipate the problems and explain the problems to the patient. Whatever it is, you must be explaining to the patient very thoroughly. And another thing is loop ileostomy. Loop ileostomy is used for defunctioning a lower rectal cancer and ileal pouch. Easy to perform. That's finished. End ileostomy. So after doing what we should explain to the patient. So suppose there is bleeding coming from the ileostomy. So think of that patient should explain to you that you please come to the doctor. You please come to the one who has done ileostomy to you, because it is a potential complication. And sometimes patients may be thinking that there is bleeding, because then you have to give proper dietary advice, because whatever something like beetroots are there, they produce classic picture, something like alarming bleeding is coming through the ileostomy wound or colostomy wound. So the dietary advice is should be given likewise. And sometimes stoma may be functioning well, but the patient might be highly discomfortable and it is inconvenience, and sometimes it may be painful at the stoma output because of indigestion or partly digested materials like tomato peels or onion or what we call spinach. They are partially indigestible in case of uh, ileostomies because colon is not there. That time so you have to explain that, and proper output, input and output, you have to monitor because in whatever secretion is coming out into the drainable disposable appliance, that is output. And now you can say that is as input. Of course the patient knows whatever quantity of milk or water that he is taking. Sometimes the patient may be having diarrhea for some other cause, and it is technically difficult or unbearable for the patient to frequently change these appliances. That also we have to explain the patient. But the potential complications I am mentioning here is, one is skin irritation. Okay, one is skin irritation. Second thing is collapse of the, not collapse of the patient, collapse of the ileostomy, collapse of the stoma, collapse of the stoma. And sometimes stoma may be retracted. It may undergo stenosis. It may undergo ischemia if your mesentery is not very much well planned. Ischemia, and there may be bleeding, and there may be internal fistulation as well, which is again technically again a huge headache for the surgeon and very much problematic for the patient as well. And last but not the least, and in fact most common complication, is parastomal herniation. Parastomal herniation in a long-standing cases may go up to 50% of the cases. So the large part of the peristomal area will be occupied by the bowel contents, and there may be huge hernia, huge herniation formation, and which is technically difficult to do surgery. And we have to go for laparotomy, and this time we may have to apply a prosthetic appliance within the abdominal wall or apply a mesh, what do you call mesh repair for hernia, mesh over the after repair of the peristomal herniation. And it is in fact whenever you are doing an elective temporary colostomy or ileostomy, it is wise to do a mesh repair or mesh processes at the time of creation of stoma itself. ఇంకా అలాగైతే ఈ కాంప్లికేషన్ వచ్చే ఛాన్స్ మీరు చాలా తప్పించుకున్నట్టు అవుతారు. ఓకే, సో నెక్స్ట్ పాయింట్ ఈజ్ loop, transverse loop colostomy. Transverse loop colostomy, loop left iliac fossa. In what happens in creation of the loop, we generally go for left iliac fossa. Colostomy loop, we go for left iliac fossa, and the ileostomy loop, we go for right iliac fossa. Whenever there is injury to the rectum, or very fistula in ano is at the high level. And the third thing is there is fecal incontinence which is not responding to the routine treatment. And fourth thing is whenever there is defunctioning and especially obstructing bowel cancer, these are some of the indications. And sometimes whenever there is rectal cancer, you are planning for a chemotherapy or radiotherapy also, you have to divert by means of left iliac fossa loop colostomy. And once you do loop colostomy and try to close the colostomy, it is a routine practice to do an enema study, that is what we call proctogram, that is used to check the patency of the distal part, whether it is patent or whether it is obstructing or whether it is any cicatrix is there, that is post radiotherapy or post chemotherapy cicatrix. And ideal time is once the tract is mature by the end of 3 months, that is the ideal time. And sometimes we do it by 2 months, but ideal is 3 months. 3 months is good for closure. What is this end colostomy? End colostomy. Okay, this end colostomy, whenever you have removed the remaining part of the bowel, distal to it, there is no other go, just do colostomy. Done in APR and abdominoperineal resection for carcinoma rectum and Hartmann's procedure, we do that. And whenever there is very significant bad diverticular disease of the sigmoid colon or complications leading to the diverticulosis arising from the sigmoid colon, then we go for the subtotal podectomy and we go for end colostomy. And best site is through lateral edge of the rectus sheath. And change of the appliance, as I mentioned before, it is 2 to 3 times a day. Change the appliance 2 to 3 times a day. Whereas a loop colostomy, a end colostomy, this is something about colostomies, but some interesting points are there. Whatever this thing are there, there are certain indications and contraindications for upgradation of these stomas. So people are not satisfactory with these stomas. In as early as in 1940s itself, there was a review conducted, and in Cleveland, if I'm not wrong, in Cleveland, and yes, they said colostomy is very much fine. And some of the reviews were surprising. Maybe we have to call them overstatement, because they said, no, normal anesthesia is not required when I have got permanent colostomy. But ultimately, that shows that impact of the colostomy on the psychiatrically, psychologically, as well as in adjusting with routine daily activities, RDA of the life. So patients are quite happy. Patients are happy. That version, that notion is still holding good. That's not a bad option. But what happened is, then Koch's pouch procedure have come. Mr. Koch, Dr. Koch had first of all done a pouch operation. That means intra-abdominal pouch creation was done in the terminal ileum, so that completely exteriorization of the ileum was not necessary, and he could use a small stoma through which a catheter was passed into the pouch, so that through that reservoir, maybe 3 times or 4 times a day, if the patient drains himself or herself, that would be sufficient. So that gained popularity in some part of early 1940s and 50s. That's what we call Koch's intra-abdominal pouch or reservoir system. And the whole process of introducing the catheter and to drain this through the pouch, drain all the collections through the pouch, this process is called intubation. This process was called intubation. Then again, but the biggest problem with Koch's pouch ileostomies was valve slippage. The valve used to slip, and there will be fistulation of the internal pouch reservoir, and sometimes infections, operated infections. So it was at those times it was used to be done in patients of ulcerative colitis or familial adenomatous polyposis coli. Likewise, they used it to do. Then comes the intervention by Dr. Barnett. He did what we still call BCIR, Barnett's continental intestinal reservoir. Barnett's continental intestinal reservoir. That's nothing but a modified Koch's pouch. In early 1970, he had operated. So what he created something like what he called nipple valve. Nipple valve, this valve, what it did exactly was only unidirectional flow was there. So there is no valve slippage. He could overcome valve slippage, but still it was not satisfactory. After 10 years later, maybe in 1969 or 70, or 79 or 80, he modified this procedure and he introduced a collar around this valve mechanism. A collar, a submucosal collar was created around this valve, and that was applied. Sometimes he classically used a plastic prosthetic called Marlex, Marlex. Marlex valve was used. Marlex valve అనేది పెట్టాడు ముందు నిప్పుల్ వాల్వ్ ఇంట్రడ్యూస్ చేశాడు. దాన్ని మోడిఫికేషన్ కింద మార్లిక్స్ వాల్వ్ పెట్టాడు. ఎందుకంటే వాడికి అంత he wanted to pioneer in that field, and he firmly believed that a reservoir system or pouch system is much comfortable to the patient, and number of cases of ulcerative colitis leading to corectomies were huge on that by that time in that area, somewhere around Cleveland. He worked later, I think he moved to Florida, but in Cleveland only he did all these things. And but again, with Marlex, he landed in problem after 5 years or 6 years. So internal fistulation again come because it is a plastic valve. So again he thought of and worked out, and then he found a living collar. That means the third variant of BCIR, that is Barnett's continental intestinal reservoir, that came as living collar. Living collar that yielded a very good results. And then, okay, he listed out who are the candidates. The candidates, he selected the candidates who fit for BCIR are those who are dissatisfied with alternate procedures like colostomy or ileostomies, no doubt. Second thing is malfunctioning or a failed Cox procedure or a failed J pouch. J pouch is a pouch created in the terminal ileum when you are planning to do with a ileorectal anastomosis or ileoanal anastomosis, especially that comes with the Crohn's disease rather than malignancy. Crohn's disease that happens, and individuals with very poor internal or external anal sphincter, and these are the candidates he has selected, but bearing certain contraindications. Those who need colostomy for other causes, obviously ileostomy cannot be done. And second thing is Crohn's disease. Crohn's disease, especially when it is active, you can't go for a reservoir system, right? But there are few exceptions. Crohn's confined only to the colon, then you are doing colectomy, then of course you can go for BCIR, no doubt. And other contraindications like obesity are there, mesenteric desmoids, we don't do BCIR, and increased age of the patient or poor compliance by the patient. These are all relative contraindications. But you have to remember that in the upgradation of doing these things, he created right from nipple valve to living collar, and it has yielded very good results. Okay, this is something about stomas. And last thing I would like to mention, irritable bowel syndrome. Irritable bowel syndrome, which is a functional syndrome. And when mentioning about irritable bowel syndrome, please don't get confused between blind loop syndrome or short bowel syndrome and irritable bowel syndrome. These three are totally different. Each one thing is separate from the other thing. So when coming to the irritable bowel syndrome, it is a functional syndrome. First thing you have to remember is a functional syndrome. Functional syndrome is by rule, all other investigations are normal, right? There is just clinical features may be variable, abdominal discomfort, bloating, passage of mucus, and irregular bowel habits. These variable symptoms may be present. And there comes the Rome criteria. Rome criteria says the abdominal pain or discomfort must be present 3 days per month, for at least 3 previous months in a given 6 months period of time. Okay, that is called Rome criteria. If your patient fits for this criteria, he comes under IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, not inflammatory bowel disease. That is different. Again, IBDs are Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis disease and inflammatory bowel disease, IBDs. It is IBS and irritable bowel syndrome. Okay, and 20% of the population ఉంటుంది. And by rule, colonoscopy, ఈ కాంప్లికేషన్స్ అన్ని వచ్చినప్పుడు ఏం చేస్తాం, బేరియం ఎనీమా చేస్తాం, లేకపోతే సిటీ చేస్తాం, లేకపోతే కొలనోస్కోపీ చేస్తాం. All these things are normal. So obviously treatment is also not satisfactory, but some patients may respond, some patients usually they don't. But by the time they attain 40 years of age, 45 years of age, most of these symptoms will vanish. So because you know this, you can strongly reassure the patient and give some symptomatic treatments like antispasmodics or antidiarrheals or enzyme replacement, whatever it is. So reassurance and symptomatic treatment, right? And diet restrictions, of course, we include more fiber and avoid fermentable carbohydrates, so that in the better hope that barborygmi and flatulence will come down, and stop smoking, reduce nicotine as well as caffeine also, and antidiarrheals and antispasmodics depending on the symptoms. Sometimes low dose tricyclic antidepressants can be tried. Low dose tricyclic antidepressants can be tried in the sense if the patients use. And last option, we go for psychological, or we refer them to some of them to psychiatry, maybe for hypnotherapy or cognitive behavioral therapy. Likewise, that also is maybe helpful in certain patients. And absolutely, anyway, surgery is contraindicated. Patient thinks that he might require surgery or he might land up in surgery, but you don't take up such cases and you don't do unnecessary laparotomies, because it's well said that a negative laparotomy is more dangerous. Okay, this is about IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. You just remember about this Rome criteria: 3 days per month for at least 3 months in a span of 6 months. That is classic clinical criteria, Rome criteria for IBS. So thank you very much. And any doubts whether about the previous class and in this class. So this is a small topic only, ileostomies, colostomies, and fecal fistula. Lot of time is left off. Girish, Kumar. So you keep typing your questions, doubts and unte adagandi. I think Kumar or Girish will come. అయిపోయింది. డౌట్స్ ఏమైనా వస్తే వాళ్ళు అడుగుతారు కదా, అలాగా ఒకసారి. Mr. Girish is coming, and I'm a bit surprised or maybe disappointed to say when I'm correcting your papers. There is some modification in the presentation. You better draw the diagrams కొద్దిగా నీట్గా రాస్తే బాగుంటుంది. And same answers, sir. I am getting same answers from all the students. ఎలాగిది? ఏం డౌట్స్ ఉంటే చెప్పండి, అడిగాను. మనకే రావట్లేదు కదా, ఇక్కడ వాళ్ళు అడిగారో లేదో తెలియదు. బ్లింక్ అవుతుంది అంటే నెట్ కనెక్షన్ బాగాలేదా? I'm not getting anything. At least some of you type something. One of you type something. Yes, I got something. Okay. And colostomy. Right. Okay, any doubt about end colostomy? That's what I told you, no? Whenever there is a malignancy of the large bowel or gunshot wound leading to total damage of the distal colon, or sometimes as part of diverticular disease of sigmoid colonic diverticulosis. In the previous topic of diverticulosis also I have mentioned that complications of the diverticular disease, especially bleeding, is more common with sigmoid colon, right? Then we remove that colon, we go for subtotal podectomy. There is no other go for the exterior. We exteriorize the descending colon, that we call sigmoid colostomy if sigmoid is intact, or end colostomy, simply end colostomy if we are doing it large. Okay, any other doubts? All right, next time I will come up with some other topic. And meanwhile, if any doubts are there, you can ask me in the next class. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Chart. Chart. Right, thank you.